Live. Oh, live in 5. Oh, that's a time. All right. So, hi Jessica, how are you? All right, so just giving people a couple of minutes. Well, actually, I'll start in 30 seconds. I just want to talk to everybody a little bit about how to value women. So, about 10 seconds to start. So I don't know if a lot of you know, but I am organizing myself and a team of wonderful people are organizing an event about sex trafficking in Peel, and the whole goal of the event is to build awareness about sex trafficking in Peel because it's happening. It's happening a lot, right? And one of the biggest things I think that that is talked about enough is how is men's contribution to it, right? And how important it is for men to really understand how society has taught us to objectify women and how that's had an impact, a very profound and deep impact that on women that makes many women very vulnerable to sex trafficking. So I want to talk about the story of Amnon and Tamar to sort of illustrate my point. So in Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 13, and I won't read the whole scripture, but essentially what happens is one of David's son, his oldest son, in fact, Amnon, falls in love with his stepsister Tamar. Right? Well, that's actually the wrong word. When it says love, the actual translation is lust. So he's lusting after his stepsister, and now he's ill, and becomes sick with lust. And then he has his friend who is like, what's wrong? And his friend's like, and Amnon tells him that he really wants to be with Tamar, and his friend's like, yo, like I have this perfect way for you to do it. Here's what you do, and Jonadab tells Amnon what to do. Long story short, Amnon ends up raping a sister. Then it says afterwards he hates her afterwards, and then yeah, you're right. It is poor counsel. Then it says that Tamar lives in Absalom, her brother's house, and for a desolate woman for the rest of her life. Right. So really, really sad story, but it is definitely illustrate what happens today, and as I read this story, I think back to when I was in high school, and I would see women, or young ladies, and I would lust after them, and I would see them, and yeah, I want to have sex with them. I want to undress them with my eyes. I joke around with my boys about it, and they egg me on, right? Just like Jonadab would, and I can think of a very specific incident where I was at a party, it was getting late, everybody was gone except for me, another person, and this other young lady, right? And a pretty young lady, drunk, and she actually fell asleep in my lap. So I'm sitting there, and as a young man, I got ideas in my head, but I'm like, nope, not doing anything, but I had a Jonadab there with me, and he's looking at me. He's like, yeah, let's go upstairs, with her. And I'm like, no, I chose not to do it, but the thoughts were in my head, and I could have chosen to do something very, very, very wrong that night, but I chose not to. So, you ever heard that story before? Oh yeah. So I could have done something, but I didn't. And it made me think about other times where I would hear about women in school and how guys would run trains on them. I'd hear stories about young ladies who've been called hoes and whores and sluts because they've had sex with one guy. And I hear about I was encouraged to do. The music I was listening to was like all about, yeah, I'm gonna slap, I'm gonna beat, I'm gonna joke, do all these things to women, right? And uh, these are the messages that I'm growing up with, and I think about Amnon and how he let this lust consume him, and how society lets it be okay for men to let lust consume them. And in many cultures, I even heard of men, well, even in my own, right. I've heard of men just being justified in cheating. Boys will be boys. I've even had family members tell me, when I'm going through a hard time, find a woman and have sex with them. This is what's been drilled into my head, right? As I've grown and I've learned to do better and be a better man around how I interact with women, I've learned how those interactions, like when women have those interactions with me and then with other men, how that impacts their psyche, right? So if a woman, every time she contacts a man, comes in contact with a man, and she's objectified, it tells her something about herself, and imagine that now happening from when you're young, and I've been around guys, old, like grown men in their 30s, see a young lady who might be, say, 16, 17, and she's dressed a certain way, and maybe not even intentional, maybe not even provocative, but she's a young lady. But no matter what, she's a young lady. But their interaction is, "Hey, baby, you're fine. You're sexy. How old are you? Yeah. Whoa. Look at that." Like, so imagine experiencing that all your life. It tells you something about yourself, right? And you might hear other messages that about how you're beautiful, how you're smart, and explaining other qualities about yourself. But those will pale in comparison to the amount of times a woman will hear about how she looks, right? And not only that, in music, on billboards, in movies, how women are portrayed over and over again. It tells me, what women should be. It tells my young boys what women should be. It tells what women what they should be, right? So they're objectified. They're looked at it as things, right? So now let's place a woman in a situation where she's incredibly vulnerable. Let's say a young lady comes from a broken home, dad's not around, mom's not really there for her the way she should be, and as a result, she's looking for someone to love her, right? She's looking to feel, she's looking to be empowered, and everybody needs that's a basic need, right? So, but the thing is, if she comes into contact with one of these people, right, it leaves her vulnerable because she's so hungry for it that she's willing to take it in whatever form it takes. And because she's never taught what love is supposed to look like, what her interactions with men are supposed to look like, she ends up being vulnerable to wrong forms of love, right? So yeah, so like I imagine that if men would really do what the Bible says and entreat young women as their sisters, love them like they would themselves, and truly understand that these women are children of God, like truly children of God, fearfully and wonderfully made, and worth as much as anything else in the world. They're priceless, and Christ really demonstrated what a woman's worth is by, and what all of us are worth by dying for us. We are worth a life lived for, and are worth dying for. And women are supposed to be treated that way. And I really encourage all men, all of you, to really think twice, or three times, or 20,000 times about how you interact with women. And I know for young men it's hard as you learn to control your hormones. I've been through a time in my life where I'm like, I really had to train myself to stop lusting after women. It's like it was a point where I couldn't be in a car with a beautiful woman without thinking about having sex with her. And that was largely because of the way I've been trained up. you know Again, in music videos, I'm told that women are objects. In movies, I'm told women are objects. If my family members, I'm told women are objects to be used for my pleasure. And then on top of that, there is no social pressure. There's a whole bunch of Jonadabs all around me saying, hey, it is okay to do these things. You don't need to learn to control your hormones. You don't need to learn to control your sex drive. You don't need to be disciplined. And in any of these things, go get what you want, no matter the cost to the other person. And it's actually really, really disgusting, you know, and being even taught that that taking advantage of women and having sex with a lot of women makes you a man. I'm like, no, that makes you a boy. Any boy can go out and have sex with as many women as they want to. It takes a man to say no. It takes a man to be self-disciplined. It takes a man to take responsibility. So, all that being said, I really want to encourage you all to, think 20,000 times before you interact with a woman, and think about how your interactions will impact her, and the end of the story of Amnon and Tamar, it says that Tamar lived a desolate woman for the rest of her life. And I think it says two things to us. It says that one, rape, has a profound and wow, I mean, profound can't even describe the impact it has, on women. So that's what it says, and I dare I say that whenever we objectify women, whenever we undress them with our eyes, whenever we treat them less of what they're worth, it has an impact on them. A very profound impact on them. But the other part I think it says is that justice will come. Tamar actually, I believe it means olive tree or palm tree, which is a symbol of justice within the Jewish culture. And I earnestly believe that while Tamar in this story did not experience the justice in her lifetime that she wanted, that God will enact justice in the end. And that if we take responsibility in learning from this story, there will be justice for all women out there, And I really, really encourage you all to listen to this message. Ask me any questions if you want to, but understand that men objectifying women really feeds this sex trafficking. Because the more vulnerable women there are out there, the more consumers of this this trade there are, the more victims there will be. And another very sad part of the story is that David, Tamar's father, did nothing. And there are so many women who continue to suffer because leadership will do nothing. That goes for our churches, that goes for our workplaces, our governments, and this is why things like the Me Too movement are necessary to bring light to these things. And I'm so glad so many women are finding the courage and the strength to speak out. But men, we need to take responsibility. These are our sisters. These are our mothers, our cousins, our aunties. If you can take responsibility and teach other men to do so, you are protecting your own family. You're protecting your own kin. You know, they none of them are exempt from it. And I worry about my daughter all the time as she grows up, and what society is telling her about herself. And I have to be very intentional about teaching her different and teaching her brothers different. So, again, can't emphasize how important this is, enough this is. But if you want to learn more about this topic, please check out Detour Peel, hashtag Detour Peel. You can search it up on Facebook. The event is on June 29th. Look it up on the page, and reach out to me if you want to support in any way. All right. So this is me signing off. I appreciate you guys listening. You have an awesome night. Take care. Bye.